earlier we can do it and find out, the better everybody is, so we can get the information to them.
Right, and provide the support. So you've come up with a really good listing of, you know, early warning signs, and there's more I want to talk about specifically. We're going to have to take a little break here, but I specifically want to go back to the junk mail issue. I'm going to have something to say about Mr. Robertson on that one as well, and you might know where I'm going with that. But stay tuned here. We're going to be back with Debbie, our Alzheimer's advocate. This is Joan with the Joan Jerkovich Show. Be sure to catch the video outtakes. We're videoing right now. We also have podcasts and links to iTunes and my blogs on joanjerkovich.com. We'll be right back, 910 KINA, Salina. Well, did I talk to you about... We've had some conversation here this morning, because when I had told Danielle at the desk there that I had the Alzheimer's person coming in, and oh no, I think I said something about I'm ready to, you know, talk about the Pat Robertson thing, and she goes, wait, come back. I just flipped by to my office, and she said, what is that? She said, I'm seeing it on Facebook, and she didn't know what it was. So she went up and Googled, you know, some of the information, because she was curious. What did he say? Because she said she grew up on it. She said she lived with a mother and a grandmother. She grew up with a mother and a grandmother who watched him all the time, because they weren't ones to get out to church or whatever. So she grew up on that, and so she was real curious what he'd said. And then then a couple times she was Googling, coming back. Do you know what he said? Did you see that? Did you hear that? I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
Oh.
Interesting, and that whole thing on Haiti was one of the last things where he said that was a blessing in disguise.
Yeah, yes. He has just, and see here, you know, at least from where you sit with your association, you know, advocating for people and understanding that you're there to support the caretakers, not to encourage them to leave or, you know, dismiss or walk away from this, which again, I don't think most people who have loving and caring people do that.
Right.
You know, but you have some other things in your corner where when he's made those kind of comments as well, you know, you're sitting in a good position. You're not going up against a really stellar, you know, person who's never done or said anything. Yeah, I know, that's kind of funny. Let me get a quick drink and then we'll get back.
Okay. And you know, I did bring something that just tells us kind of the 10 signs of caregiver stress. You know, I do believe a lack of education, information, and support would lead to somebody just giving up.
That's really a good one. I want to kind of caregiver stress. Maybe we can kind of.
And then I also have 10 things to manage stress. You know, these are all things that we provided the association. So
we'll kind of end with something like that, because I think that's just kind of that little, you know, call us, we're here to help, you know, words of hope, because it's really the families and caretakers that, you know, all of us who aren't dealing with this in our immediate personal lives can hear about it and say, oh, well, that's got to be hard, but until you live it, you don't realize. I mean,
there's no way you can.
No, and I've just seen too many people coming in when they were looking to make the decision to come to the facility, and in many ways, I having been in that position of my current administrator manager now, you feel like you run a counseling office in a way, and I'm sure you do in your facilities too, because those people need to talk. They need to hear about they need to be able to talk it out and have support. It's just hugely emotional. So,
and you know, really, you guys in Salina have a lot of things. I mean, the day program at Sunflower is a wonderful program.
Right.
You have a support group, caregivers. The Live at Home Solutions, which I think is still kind of, you know, trying to find its place a little bit, but it's a wonderful, at least, place to get started. And then, you know, I know you have home health, you have great facilities, so Salina is really.
That's good. I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear that we have some good things here that we can.
Because I go to 23 counties, so I mean, you know, if I see where.
Yeah, see where there's some that are really needing some things. So
yeah.
What was the last thing you were talking about? Oh, I know, where you had said where they had some of the signs. So let me get back to that. I want to talk about. Welcome back, listeners. This is Joan with the Joan Jerkovich Show on 910 KINA Salina. We're wrapping up our conversation with Debbie Holroyd. She is with the Alzheimer's Association, Heart of America chapter. And just before we went to break, Debbie was giving us some very good signs of early Alzheimer's, where she would encourage you to get help to, I think, what was it you said, Debbie? You said recognize the signs,
Right.
then get support, set up a support system, get education.
Get education, get as much information, know about your resources. Salina has a lot of great resources locally, and also a support system.
Mm-hmm.
First thing I tell people when they call, though, is if they don't have a diagnosis, go.
That's a
Find
good
that out
point.
instead of living in limbo going, I wonder if it's this. You know, there are some dementias that are treatable, that, we have medications for if it's not Alzheimer's. So you want to figure out what it is first. And then once you get that, learn everything you can about it.
Very good point. And one of the things I want to get back to, especially relative to the Televangelist and some in that category, I'll just say in that category, one of the things in working myself personally with these Alzheimer's people, which fell into one of your top lists of early warning signs, is they can get a stack of mail and be sitting there not being able to discern, is this junk mail or are these legitimate bills? And I have had more than one situation where at our facility, Dignity Care Home, we had to advocate, especially for residents who didn't really have family, and this is ones that really fell prey to this. Yes. We had to advocate and sometimes even get legal assistance to get these telemarketers, in a sense, and many of them were from places like the 700 Club, to quit preying and calling on the demented resident, either straight dementia or early Alzheimer's, because they were lonely, they were living alone. The friendly voice at the other end of the telephone would be saying, "Send us your money." That's right. And that's, I think that was another thing, to be honest, that really got me bristling when I heard this comment, because we know that those shows are soliciting monies from their listening audience, from their viewing audience. I could almost venture to guess that Pat Robertson's 700 Club may even have as much as 10% of his revenues coming in from lonely, elderly, maybe demented people. Have you seen some of those abuses, or have you run into that?
I have, not specifically to Pat Robertson, because
right,
I don't
not
always know the details.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what I have a lot of families tell me is that their loved one is just stuffing money in envelopes every time they get a solicitation.
Absolutely.
And these are to causes that when they had their executive functioning working good, they would not have given to. I am all for giving to charities that you believe in, but when you see a loved one who's just giving and just putting in $20, they get one next week, putting in $20, and
then the envelopes start coming faster.
Yes.
Because of exactly what you're saying. Now, I'm all for people who have all their faculties donating to whatever organization they believe in, yes. But then it becomes a problem. And particularly, you said you've had family members come in and say, "Oh my goodness, I realized that." That mother or father must be given to these people because there's just so many solicitations coming in. And that is true. We know that's true. Yes. We know that that's why they're sending the envelopes, donation envelopes, fast and furious.
Yeah, and the phone calls. I mean,
and yes, the phone calls.
I did a home visit with the lady. I was only there an hour.
Oh
she got 4
oh my goodness.
solicitation in 1 hour.
Oh my goodness. From these gimme organizations.
Yes. Mm-hmm. I got with her children and just said, "Hey, we need to get her on the no-call list. We need to get her, the junk mail. Get her off the junk mail." I don't remember. I think go online and do that. Because
a good point.
Taking advantage.
Take the steps of getting them on a no-call list and on the junk mail. And again, oftentimes, I know there are, wonderful families out there, but the ones that always, concern me are, there are a lot of elderly who maybe never married, never had children, might have nieces and nephews living in California or something. And so it's not even a bad message to get to our healthcare workers, to be aware of and alert to that, because you were in doing a home visit, but what if it was a home health aide who maybe also, needs to think about, cueing, their case manager, or cueing someone to say, hey, I was there giving them their bath, and she got 4 calls from solicitors.
Yeah.
And was telling them I'll be sending money or sending money. So it's a real issue.
Anybody, neighbors, I mean, anybody who can help someone out should definitely do it.
Well, and as you talked about, caregivers, because we know caregiver stress is just a huge piece of this that needs support. Obviously the person with the illness needs it, but the caregiver. So what are some of the signs of caregiver stress? What might even an adult child see in a parent home taking care of this, their mother or father, that says, okay, Mom, Dad, it's really time.
Right. One thing that we see, usually in the beginning more than anything, is denial.
Oh, of course.
So
in the caretaker?
In the caretaker as well. So that's why I really encourage, if you have any suspicion, go to the doctor and get that figured out. Another thing we see is anger. Why did this happen to my spouse? Why do I have to do all of this now? Just these are natural responses.
Well, this is
it's
Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's stages of grief.
Yes, yes.
As you know.
Right.
First is denial, next is anger. Eventually there's acceptance. So
at the very end.
Very takes a while.
Other things we see, though, we see caregivers socially withdrawing. So, if they were card players every Friday night, well, now maybe their spouse isn't able to play cards. So that also takes the caregiver out, and they're withdrawing. Other things to look for, anxiety, somebody getting upset over stuff that they used to not get upset over. Depression is huge for the person who has the diagnosis, as well as for the caregivers many times. Exhaustion, see a lot of that. Sleeplessness, I hear about that one a lot, because a lot of times somebody with Alzheimer's could get their days and nights mixed up. Well, then the spouse is staying up, listening, to make sure that somebody, their loved one doesn't wander off. So they're not getting any sleep either, right?
So they're very sleep deprived.
Yes, and a lack of concentration, that they once had. Irritability, health problems. This is huge. There's actually a research that I saw, it was within the last year, saying that for 65 and older, that 60% of the caregivers passed away before the person with Alzheimer's.
Oh, wow, wow.
And that was because they're not taking care of themselves. They're not going to the doctor. They're not eating right. Well, they're not sleeping.
Right. Really makes a case for what you just said as far as, and I'm sorry we're going to have to wrap it up here, but that was wonderful to end on, the signs of caregiver stress, so that all the families and even people who are caretakers can be aware of this. But this is, again, Joan with the Joan Jerkovich Show, and go to joanjerkovich.com for our video outtakes and links to iTunes. Thanks for joining us today. And this is Joan Jerkovich Show, 9 a.m. Saturdays on 910 KINA Salina. I need to give you a cue, which I didn't do today, but I really wanted to hear more about what you were saying. So please stay on the video. I hope you go to Joan Jerkovich and watch the video, because the 60% passed away. Wow, that really shocked me. And do you have a sense from what the research said about that it was relative to caregiver stress, maybe, or how?
Yeah, yes. Not taking care of themselves. They're not going to the doctor for themselves.
Yeah.
They're just exhausted.
They're grieving, they're exhausted, they're...
A lot of people, it seems like, in the generation that we're starting to see as baby boomers, they don't want to ask for help. This is not something you should have to do yourself. Be open with your friends, your family. Get in outside help in. All this will help you to maintain a better relationship and take care of your loved one even better. So. I feel like a salesman sometimes when I'm saying, you know what, it's okay to have someone come in and maybe help with the cooking or do some laundry for you or just straighten the house. Or come in so you can go out for 2 hours and do whatever it is you want to do. And it's like, I feel like a salesman. But I know how important that is.
It is. Or to even, like you said, if they're not going to their card party, they need to go.